All right, so this video is really about, I'm trying to get you comfortable with your graphing calculator so that we're graphing and whatever it be, that you really just start to become, hey, and you realize, hey, this is things a tool. I know how to plug things in. I know how to look at things graphically, because that's what this really does, is it expedites the process for us to be able to understand what, like for example, on the left-hand side here, what does this graph look like? So that I can just then choose. And I have a visual awareness of what I'm actually graphing. And so what this video is really about is, yeah, we're going to fill in some tables, and yeah, we're going to do some stuff in my math lab as far as graphing, but it's really a building piece for later sections, later units that we'll be working on. So got your calculator in front of you. Please hit pause, rewind. If you get stuck and you forget a spot, watch it several times. We want to plug this equation into our graphing calculator. So we go to y equals. We need the square root of x minus 5. So our square root is there above the x squared key. So we have to hit the second square root. So one more time. Second x2, which gives you the square root. Oops. I hit it too many times. Okay, I'm back. I'm good. And then at that point, our x key is located up here right next to the alpha key. And we do minus 5. Now, let's talk about window real quickly here before we go ahead and hit go. And the thing about the window is that right now, if I hit graph, I get a graph that looks like that. And the thing is, though, is it doesn't mean your graph is going to look like that. It really depends on what your window is. So let's go to the window key, please. Let's explore this concept of window. And window being this right here that you see, this x-axis and this y-axis. So our window right now is set to what they call a standard window. It's 10 by 10. That means when I look at my window, my x minimum is negative 10. That means over here on the x-axis, that's negative 10 at the end. My x max is positive 10. That means on the right-hand side, that's positive 10. And all the little lines on my x-axis are going by ones. My y-scale is the same way, negative 10 at the bottom, positive 10 at the top with a scale of 1. Don't worry about the resolution, leave it alone, don't touch it. Just trust me. So when I hit graph, now that I know my window is a standard window at 10 by 10, I can see that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That this thing is touching the x-axis at positive 5 and traveling off to the right. So we can see our answer obviously very clearly. The answer is A. So keeping that in mind, what I want you to see is that when you come back to your calculator, you might need to change your window. So like you might graph something and something's not showing. So know, for example, that if you wanted to, you could type in, you could change that x minimum to negative 20. You could change your y max to 50. And so when we hit graph, you can see you're going to see a lot more of the graph. But at the same time, in this particular case, it makes our graph look not as defined. A generic rule of thumb here is you take this guy right here, you take your largest number and divide it by 10. So normally our scale was negative 10, positive 10. You divide either one of those by 10, your scale will be 1. In this case here, since I had 20, in that case I would change my scale to 2. And down here, since my largest number is 50, I take 50 and divide it by 10, and my scale will be 5. So now when I graph it, it gives me a little bit better picture. Obviously with this one, this is not the right window, so it doesn't seem right. So let's say we want to go back to our standard window. Our button to use there is zoom. So to look at our window, to see what we have, we hit window. To set our window very quickly, like presets, this is like you're on your radio in your car. And so you got channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, and so forth. These are your presets. So you got Z box, zoom in, zoom out, decimal, square, and our favorite one is number 6. So we'll choose number 6, and now it takes our window back to a 10 by 10. So if you go back to window and check it out, we're back to 10 by 10. So that's a long explanation for this simple little question, but remember, I'm trying to build some understanding. So think about this, practice it a couple times, and watch it as needed. All right. So obviously our answer is A. So we'll go to the next question, And let's do this. I'm the teacher here. Let me work this as a student so you can get to see the answers. There we go. All right, so now we have an equation. We have another quadratic. So we want to take a look at the graph. And as a matter of fact, we actually get to complete a table. So you could do this by hand, but once again, I wanted to show you how you could use your table feature right here in the calculator. So we go y equals, press clear to delete what's in there, and go ahead and type in your x squared. So x squared plus 5. Okay, so I need to go ahead and complete this table first. Like I said, you can do this by hand. You could type in -2, or do -2 on paper, squared plus 5. You could probably do it in your head. But I want to use the table. And you notice right above the graph key is where the table is located. And we've used this when we were doing our factoring, right? So we want to go to the table key. So we go second graph. That brings us to our table. Well, obviously last time I was on here, I ended up at 36. So one way you can do that is you can just work your way back to where you need to be, right? And keep on doing it like that. Another way is become more familiar with these keys up here. You'll notice right above the window key it says TBL set. I want you to read that as table set. So we hit second, table set. All right, it says right here, I want my table to start at 26. No, I want my table to start at 0. I want my table, if you remember in science class, delta, the little triangle, stands for change. So that literally says I want my table to change by 1s. That's true. I want it to change by 1s. I want my independent variable, my x variable, to be auto. I want my dependent variable to be auto. So the main thing is I want to change it so I go back to 0. So I'm kind of like right at the beginning of the table. Once again, we hit second graph to go to that table, and you'll see now instead of being at 26, I'm at 0. So I can arrow up, go to my 2, so I can see at 2, my answer is 9. At 0, I can see my answer is 5. And at positive 2, I can see my answer is, oops, not 8, but 9. All right, check your answer, and good job. So now we're ready to graph. So at this point, I want you to use your calculator at this point to see what the shape is going to be. So let's go ahead and hit graph. So I do want you to see, oh, look, that's my shape. It's going to be a parabola. All right, we'll talk about shapes of graphs as we come on, but right now we're going to use our calculator to see that. So when we click on this tool right here to enlarge the graph, and we get this guy right here, I'm going to hit pause and see if I can figure out why that's so small. All right, that's a little bit better, so we'll run with that. So we have, when we get our graphing tool pulled up, we've got just plotting a point, which isn't going to do anything for us. All right, click on it. We've got if you wanted to draw a straight line, and if you hover over it, it'll actually tell you. This guy would be an absolute value. This would be a 3-point, a quadratic is the key thing, but they're going to ask us to do 3 points. This would be a 4-point cubic, circle, and so forth. So we won't actually use any of these shading ones down here for this class. So we have a quadratic, so we choose this guy. In this case here, they give us the direction of what we have to do first. Plot any point. It doesn't matter what point. So I'm going to plot 2, 9. So I'm going to go over 2, up 9, and you'll notice right here, well, you can't see my finger, right up here, it's actually telling you where you are. So it's a little bit easier to see instead of trying to visualize on the screen. Oops, I accidentally put something down, so, wait, nope, that's right, 2, 9. Then I go 0, 5, and then I go -2, 9. And that looks like my graphing calculator. I think you would agree. So I say save, I check, and oops, what's going on? Save, and check. That was the wrong spot. Good job. All right, a couple more, because I just want to show you where to find the tools, okay? So the next one's absolute value. So we pull out our calculator, we go y equals, and clear that one off. And then we need to find the absolute value bars. The absolute value bars are located inside the math key. So we hit math. We go over to num. So math, arrow over to num at the top. And then number 1 is absolute values. Bring those out. Go ahead and type in your equation. X minus 8. Same thing. Let's go to our table. So second table. Hit rewind as needed. Remember, you go back and rewatch this. I know I'm going somewhat quickly. I type in 12. Good job. It says at +8, so I got to go down to +8 here and see what I get. +8, I get 0. All right, and then the next one is 11. So 11, I get 3. And oops, I better check that first. Okay, I think they're asking me, nope, that's it. So they're asking me for 3 points. All right, let's take a look at what this looks like to remind ourselves. So let's hit graph. And you can see that that's going to be a V. Now this would be a perfect example where I'm not seeing all of my window because the graph is shifted to the right. We know that's +10 right there. So we could go to our window if we needed to, if we couldn't see everything. And we could change like our X max to 20. And then, obviously you could change your scale, but it'll be okay if the numbers are small enough like that. And now you hit graph, and what you'll see is now you can see that this window actually goes to 20 right there. It's going by ones all the way out to 20. I can get a better picture of what's going on with my graph. But what that does for me is when I click on enlarge this, that reminds me that I'm going to use the absolute value tool. And then make sure you read these directions carefully because it says plot the vertex. Well, the vertex, if we go back, remember the vertex is that low point, the point where it bounces and turns the other way. So in this case here, our vertex would be 8, 0. So we go over 8, 0. And then when you do your next point, you just choose a point. They're only going to have you choose 2 points because this graph is symmetrical. So if I chose 11, 3, that will give me the exact same graph as if I chose -4, 12. So if I went over here and said -4, 12, it would be exactly the same graph because of the symmetry. We save it, we check it, and we get good job. All right, last one. Oops, that's been happening periodically. Let's see if we can't get that fixed. Let's go back, go forward. There we go. That happens to you, just do something similar to that. All right, so same thing. This is a cubic function, so we'll go through it pretty quickly. So we're y equals, we clear, we press X, we use the caret key to raise it to the 3rd power, +2. All right, remember we jacked our window up or messed our window up, so we're going to go to zoom 6 to change our window back to a 10 by 10. And we can see here that we're going to have a cubic function, an S-shaped function. We go to our table to get our values. We're looking for -1. So at -1, we get +1. At 0, we get 2. At 1, we get 3. And at 2, we get 10. Check that. Good job. So now we're ready to graph. We already saw that from our graph that we have the little S guy. So when we click on our tools, we'll come over here, we'll grab the little S guy, and then you just start plotting your point. So generally in this case here, you start at your first one, so -1, +1, 0, 2, 1, 3, and 2, 10. Now that gives us our graph. We click save, we check our answer, oops, and we check our answer, and we get a good job. All right, so that's kind of that video is a little bit long, but I'm really trying to use this video to make sure that you feel comfortable with plugging things in your calculator, using the window key, remember? So explore the window key, use your zoom key as your presets. That's like your radio stations on your radio in your car. All right, you've got your graph key to graph and see what's going on. You've got your table to be able to get your ordered pairs that you need to be able to fill in the table. And then if you needed to, you have your table set right here in blue, second table set, and then go back there if you wanted to go back and start at like 0, for example. All right, leave your change at 1 and leave those at auto for now. All right, so that should wrap up this video and hopefully this section. All right, so you can get started.